The marble lobby of Skybridge Tech glittered like ice as the elevator doors slid open. Morning light poured through the glass wall, catching the silver letters. Welcome investors. A crowd of staff stood stiff and smiling. Then a sharp voice split the air. Move that filthy bucket away from my heels. Vanessa Cole snapped. Her stilettos clicked toward an old woman stooping with a mop. The woman's hair was wrapped in a faded blue scarf. Her hands were bony but steady. She wore a gray cleaner's uniform neatly pressed, a small tag reading Tola. She lifted the bucket to pull it aside. Vanessa flicked her wrist. The tote bag on her arm swung out, hitting the bucket's rim. Brown water sloshed and spilled across the freshly polished floor, splattering the hem of the old woman's uniform. Gasps rose. A security guard shifted forward and stopped, unsure. 2 interns looked away. The old woman Tola held her breath and whispered, "Sorry, Ma." "Sorry?" Vanessa's laugh rang hard. "Do you know what these shoes cost? You people never think. You only bring your village habits into decent places." She picked a tissue and dabbed her heel. "Call someone to clean this mess." "Not you. Someone who can think." Tola kept her eyes down. "I'll clean it, Ma." Vanessa leaned in, voice low but cutting. "The only reason you're here is because this company likes charity. But charity shouldn't be seen. Next time hide. Understand?" A silence fell so heavy it hummed. Tola's fingers shook around the mop handle. She did not reply. She could not. On the mezzanine above, across a railing of glass, executives paused, watching. A young man in a navy suit clenched his jaw. A receptionist squeezed her tablet. Someone whispered, "Investors are in the main boardroom at 9. Please, no drama." Vanessa turned to the crowd, reassembled her smile, and lifted her chin like a queen giving mercy. "Let's be professional," she announced. "We have a big day." She took 3 steps and halted. A small bracelet had slid from Tola's wrist in the scramble and lay on the floor, glinting. It was thin gold, worn smooth, engraved inside with one word, "AWAO." Tola reached for it, but Vanessa's heel came down first, trapping the bracelet under the point of her shoe. "Oh look," Vanessa said, eyes cold. "Trash." Tola's breath caught. "Please, Ma. It's not trash." Vanessa dragged her heel slightly, scratching the gold. "Move back." Then with a twist she flicked the bracelet toward the wet floor. It skidded and tapped against a column. Tola flinched but did not run after it. A murmur shivered through the lobby, discomfort, anger, shame, then scattered as the revolving doors spun and a wave of cold air swept in. The chauffeur stepped first, holding the glass for the next person. Cameras lifted. Heads turned. The billionaire CEO was arriving. The lobby seemed to tilt toward the doors like a tide. Vanessa straightened, smoothed her jacket, and reset her smile into something softer. "Everyone places," she said without looking at Tola again. Tola bent her knees slowly, eased the mop into the bucket, and fished out a small rag. She dabbed at the water as if it were a wound. Her eyes flicked once toward the bracelet, then away. She picked up the bucket handles and shifted the weight to one hip, hiding the tremor in her shoulder. The chauffeur stepped aside. A tall figure in a tailored charcoal suit entered with a calm stride and an easy nod, the kind that lowered tensions without words. He was in his mid-30s, skin warm brown, face clean-shaven, hair cut low. The press had called him the wonder of the coast. His name was Jordan Adeyemi, born in Lagos, raised between Houston and Ibadan, billionaire by 32, the genius who built Skybridge into a giant. He didn't speak. He surveyed the lobby once, eyes moving like a wave. Security, reception, investors, the banner, the gleam of the floors, the staff lined like pins, then landing for a breath on the old woman and the wet patch at her feet. Vanessa took a step forward, bright as a billboard. "Jordan," she said warmly, too warmly. "Welcome. Everything is ready. The deck is in the boardroom and the New York fund is already seated. I'll walk you in." Jordan nodded politely. He would have moved on, but the old woman had bent to squeeze her rag, and the way her hands worked, gentle, practiced, careful, pulled his eyes back. Something in the line of her shoulders, the precise way she kept her back straight despite the weight, brushed against a memory like fingers along old strings. He hesitated. Vanessa noticed and followed his glance. "Oh that," she said, light and dismissive. "We had a small spill. I've asked for it to be handled." The receptionist's lips pressed tight. Jordan drifted a step toward the wet patch, still silent. He looked down. The gold bracelet lay near the column, its inside engraving catching light. He crouched and picked it up between thumb and finger. The lobby air chilled. Tola looked at the bracelet and then away, as if the sight of it in someone else's hand was a private thing seen by mistake. Jordan turned the bracelet, read the single engraved word, and for the first time a crack showed in his calm. The muscle at his jaw twitched. He looked up, not at Vanessa, not at the crowd, but at the old woman standing very still, eyes lowered, breath shallow. "Sir?" Vanessa prompted, still smiling. "They're waiting." Jordan stood, slow and deliberate, the bracelet resting in his palm. He stepped toward the old woman. His voice, when it finally came, was soft, the way a person speaks to stop a thing from breaking. "How did you get this?" he asked. Tola did not lift her head. "It is mine," she said. Vanessa's smile flickered. "Sir, we don't need to waste time on." Jordan lifted a hand without looking at her. The hall went so quiet the hum of the air conditioner sounded loud. He looked again at the engraving. Then his eyes moved to the old woman's face. He studied the slope of her cheekbones, the faint scar near her eyebrow, the tiny mole by her left ear. 100 Sundays unfolded in a single heartbeat. A pot of stew. A wooden spoon. A hand on his head. A voice whispering a name he had not heard in years, the way only one person ever said it. He swallowed. If the lobby had been colder, you would have seen his breath. The front doors swung again, and the investors from New York entered in a cluster of coats and chatter. The moment stretched like wire. Jordan looked past the old woman toward the wet footprints on the marble, then at the scuffed bracelet in his hand, now faintly scratched. He turned his head toward Vanessa. His look was unreadable. "If this is a small spill," he said quietly, "why does it feel like a flood?" Vanessa laughed in a way that wasn't laughter. "Sir, I only asked the cleaner to be careful." She was blocking the path. Tola finally lifted her face. Her eyes met Jordan's for the first time. They were warm and dark, and behind the quiet there was a storm held back by tradition and dignity. The kind of storm that doesn't shout. It endures. Jordan's fingers closed over the bracelet. He took one more step, close enough to see the fine lines around her eyes. Close enough to smell the simple soap on her skin. The elevator chimed behind them. The boardroom assistant peeked out and whispered, "They're ready, Mr. Adeyemi." Jordan did not turn. He took a breath that shook very slightly and said the word he had not said in public since his first fundraise, the word that belonged to another world and a smaller kitchen and a boy with dust on his knees. A shout burst from the entrance. A delivery man, pale with panic, skidded in and knocked into the mop bucket. Water fanned out again across the floor, surging toward Vanessa's shoes. She jumped back with a sharp cry. The bucket clattered and spun, then rolled to a stop against the investor from New York carrying a leather folio. The investor stared at the spreading water, then at Jordan, confused. A hush fell again, but it was a different hush now, the tight kind that happens before a door opens on something no one expects. Jordan's lips pressed into a line. He lifted the bracelet to his chest as if testing its weight against his heartbeat. The old woman's eyes were on his face, waiting, hoping, afraid. "Sir?" Vanessa's voice had lost a shade of its brightness. "Shall we proceed?" Jordan did not answer her. He faced the old woman, the crowd, the mess on the floor, and the eyes of people who waited for orders. He opened his mouth to speak the word that would break the lobby in two. And from behind him a clear, steady voice spoke first, cutting through the room like a thin bell. "Jordan," the voice said, calm and certain. "What are you going to do?" He froze. The voice belonged to the chair of the board, who had stepped out of the elevator without anyone noticing. The chair's gray hair framed a face that missed nothing. Jordan turned his head halfway, caught between worlds. The old woman's fingers tightened around the rag. Vanessa held her breath. The investors drifted closer, the water shining around their shoes like a border drawn by fate. Jordan looked back down at the bracelet in his hand, then into the old woman's eyes. "First," he said, voice low. The lobby lights flickered once and dimmed, and a distant alarm began to beep somewhere deep in the building. The entire room lifted its head toward the sound, as if the building itself had a heartbeat that had just stuttered. Jordan's next word never came. The alarm throbbed like a heartbeat trapped in the walls, then softened to a slow, steady beep. A maintenance officer hurried from a side door and called out, "It's a sensor reset. Power dip on the grid. We're stable." The lights on the ceiling hummed back to full brightness. Air returned to the room in a hush. People breathed again, but no one moved first. Jordan stood in the center of it all, a man between two lives. The spotless boardroom waiting upstairs with investors from New York, and the wet marble floor where an old cleaner clutched a rag and the bracelet in his palm shone with a scratched word that could scatter his composure. Tola lowered her eyes. She had learned long ago that sometimes the safest place for your gaze is the ground. She squeezed water from the rag into the bucket with careful patience. the way she held herself when the world insisted on being loud. Mr. Adeyemi, the chair said evenly, we're at 9:05. Jordan nodded, eyes never leaving the bracelet. I'll be up in 3 minutes. Vanessa let out a soft, relieved sound. Perfect, she said quickly, trying to glue order back onto the moment. I'll prep the deck and coordinate coffee service. People clear the lobby. Let's. Not yet, Jordan said. The words were calm. They nailed the room to the floor. Vanessa's smile stalled. Sir? Jordan slid the bracelet into his pocket like it was a fragile thing that might break in air. He turned to the receptionist. Kiana, please get me a towel. The thick one. Kiana nodded fast and hurried toward the storage room. The chair's eyes moved between Jordan and the old woman. The investors shifted their weight, unsure if they were watching corporate discipline, corporate theater, or something more dangerous. Truth. Jordan crouched again, but this time not to inspect the bracelet. He dipped his own hand into the mop water, then used his palm to drag the water into a smaller pool. His crisp cuff drank the brown line without complaint. The room seemed to tilt, no one breathed. The billionaire CEO neat and careful on a wet floor. Vanessa's voice failed to find a tone that made sense. Sir, there's no need. Jordan looked up at the old woman. Please, he said. Let me help you. Tola's lips parted, then closed. She nodded once. She couldn't make a bigger gesture without spilling her heart onto the floor. Kiana returned with a white towel. Jordan took it, pressed it into the water, and began to blot. The act was quiet, almost intimate. It said to everyone watching, dignity first. When the floor was safe, Jordan rose and handed the towel back. Thank you, Kiana. He turned to Tola. Ma, are you all right? Ma. One small word offered like shelter. I am fine, Tola said, voice steady because she trained it to be. Thank you, sir. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The old name pushed against the back of his teeth and waited. The chair stepped closer. Mr. Adeyemi, the investors will admire a leader who restores order, the chair said dryly. They will also admire one who keeps time. I'll be upstairs, Jordan said. He glanced at the bracelet imprint the towel left, a faint dry patch like a secret seal. But first I need 2 things. He turned to security. Mr. Omondi, pull the lobby camera feed from 7:50 to 9:05. Send it to my private screen in the boardroom. Vanessa blinked. Why the cameras? Jordan's expression didn't move. Because leadership is what you do when no one is clapping. He looked to HR, a woman with micro braids and eyes that had seen too much brushed under rugs. Tessa, please come with me after you greet the investors. We'll speak for 5 minutes. Tessa nodded, pen already open. And, Jordan added, softer, somebody please bring tea to the cleaner. Ginger if we have it. It was Kiana again who nodded and ran. Jordan's eyes returned to Tola, and for a breath they were only 2 people in a very busy place. If anyone speaks to you without respect, he said quietly, tell reception to page me. Tola bowed her head. Yes, sir. Jordan hesitated, pulled by something old and soft, then turned and walked to the elevator. The chair fell in beside him. Vanessa moved to the other side, eager to occupy the air near power. The doors slid shut with a bright chime that sounded too cheerful for a morning thick with unasked questions. The lobby broke its frozen pose. People moved, whispering like leaves. The delivery man apologized again. Security regained posture. A junior analyst wiped the last faint smear of water with a napkin stolen from the cafe cart. Life tried to reassemble itself. Tola stood, the rag in her hand suddenly heavier than cloth. She breathed in and out slowly. She glanced toward the column where the bracelet had skidded, saw nothing, and then remembered, it was in the CEO's pocket. Safe. Or dangerous. She could not tell which. She turned her face toward the window. Across the avenue, buses roared, horns called, and commuters navigated puddles from last night's rain. The world kept moving. It always did. The boardroom screens blinked awake upstairs. Investors removed coats and pretended not to be curious. The chair's fingers tapped a calm rhythm on the table. Vanessa stood near the screen, laser pointer ready, voice tuned to a confident pitch. Jordan took his seat at the head. He placed his phone face down, a habit he'd built to keep himself present. Today he turned it face up and tapped a secure icon. The lobby camera feed appeared on the small glass in his palm. On the screen time slid backward. 8:47. The lobby was calm. Staff arranging bouquets. Tola wheeling her bucket along the edge, careful not to mark the shine. Vanessa entering with a latte, typing without looking, heels slicing clean lines. 8:52. Vanessa glanced down, saw the bucket and didn't adjust her path. She kept texting. Tola pulled back to make space, gave a polite nod. Vanessa didn't see it. 8:55. Guests began to arrive. A photographer checked angles. Security ran a radio check. Tola squeezed the mop softly, moving in the neat rhythm that made floors sing rather than smear. Vanessa scrolled, irritated at a line in the deck, at a word that was too cautious. She needed harder numbers, bigger verbs. 8:58. A cluster of interns froze, not knowing whether to greet Vanessa or hide. Vanessa let her tote swing. It clipped the bucket as in real time. Water leapt out. The first gasp. Tola flinched, then straightened, already reaching for the rag. Vanessa's mouth formed the first sharp sentence. Jordan's jaw tightened. He pressed pause. Across the table, the New York lead investor leaned forward. "Mr. Adeyemi," he said lightly. "We good to start?" Jordan lifted his eyes. "We are." He placed the phone face down again, drew a breath that filled all the way to his back and smiled a measured welcome. "Thank you for coming. Let's talk about the next 5 years." The presentation flowed: new data centers in Atlanta and Nairobi, expanded rail sensors for the Port Authority, a talent pipeline with historically black colleges and universities. The numbers were clean, the story crisp. Vanessa was good at this part. She moved the laser like a conductor's baton, turning risk into opportunity and costs into investment. The investors nodded, eyes narrowing only at the curves that rose too fast. Under the table, Jordan's thumb found the edge of the bracelet in his pocket and pressed until the metal warmed. Each time he said margin, throughput, discipline, he felt the shallow engraving against his skin like a word whispered through the years. Half an hour in, the chair asked a question about supply chain delays. Jordan answered with a concrete plan: names, dates, redundancies. He was steady. He was built for rooms like this. He was also built by a woman who used to stretch one yam into a miracle and stand between him and a world that laughed at little boys who wore thrifted shoes. He had left that world years ago, not to escape her but because he believed he could build something big enough that no one would talk to women like her the way the world had talked to her then. And yet downstairs in his own lobby, the old wound had replayed in front of cameras. When the first segment ended, the chair signaled a 5-minute break. People stood, called home, checked screens, made polite jokes about Houston traffic. Jordan remained in his chair, eyes on nothing. Tessa from HR slipped into the room with a notebook. She sat 2 seats away, waited. Vanessa hovered at the far end of the table, smiling at the investors, every angle rehearsed. Jordan leaned toward Tessa. "What is our policy on harassment of non-corporate staff?" he asked softly. "Zero tolerance," Tessa said. "Across all levels. Training is annual for managers. Enforcement is mixed." He nodded once as if he already knew the answer. "And our grievance reporting for janitorial staff? They can report through their contract firm or directly to HR, Tessa said. But cleaners rarely do. Fear and habit." The chair, listening without seeming to, folded their hands. "Culture is what people do when the deck is off," the chair said. "You don't change culture in policy. You change it in moments." Jordan's thumb found the bracelet again. Moments? He stood. "Back in 2, he told the room and stepped into the hallway with Tessa. "Please document what you saw downstairs," he said. "Collect statements from reception, security, and the delivery guy." Quietly. "Yes," Tessa said. He started toward the elevator, then stopped. He turned to the glass wall that overlooked the atrium. Far below, he could see a small figure at the edge of a sunlit square, wiping a skirting board with patient strokes. He felt the tug of 2 currents, the meeting he had to lead and the life he could not ignore. "Mr. Adeyemi?" Vanessa's voice sailed softly from behind. She had followed, tone dipped in honey. "Strong opening. They love the growth story. After lunch, I'll pivot to community impact. It always lands." Jordan half-turned. "After lunch," he said, "we'll address something else first." "What's that?" Vanessa asked, smile fixed. "The kind of house we are." His voice was mild, it carried steel. Vanessa laughed lightly, a white flag disguised as charm. "Of course. Our values slide." "No slides," he said. "Truth." Her smile held, but a flicker passed behind her eyes, small and quick. Downstairs, Tola finished the baseboard, rose slowly, and pressed a hand to her back for a moment. Kiana approached with a mug. "Ginger tea, ma'am," she said softly. "Please be careful, it's hot." Tola took it with both hands like a gift. "God bless you," she said. Kiana smiled. "Amen." As Tola sipped, the steam curled into the air, carrying a memory with it, of a small room years ago, of a boy doing homework at a wobbly table, of ginger and hot water when sickness tried to settle in. She closed her eyes for 3 heartbeats, opened them and returned to work. Work kept hands busy when the heart was loud. Upstairs the investors filed back in. Vanessa set the next slide, bright blue and confident. The chair resumed their place. Jordan stood at the head again, hand in his pocket as if anchoring himself to a small circle of metal. He looked at the faces around the table, then at the doorway to the hallway, then at the glass that showed him a cleaner in the lobby, older than his memories but somehow exactly the same. "Before we continue," Jordan said, voice even, "I need to bring someone into this room." Vanessa's head tilted, polite confusion arranged with care. "A director?" she asked. Jordan met her eyes. "A witness." He tapped the intercom on the table. "Kiana," he said, "please bring the lobby cleaner to boardroom 1. Silence struck the room. Tessa's pen stopped moving. The chair's eyebrows rose a fraction, approval hidden under professionalism. The investors looked at one another, amused, curious, uneasy. This was not on the agenda. 5 floors below, Kiana froze with the empty mug and looked at Tola. "Ma, he asked for you." "For me?" Tola whispered. "Yes, ma'am." Tola's hand trembled on the mug. She set it down gently, wiped her palms on her uniform and smoothed her scarf. Her shoes were cheap but clean. Her heart beat against her ribs like a quiet drum trying to be brave. She followed Kiana to the private elevator, the one she had never used. As the doors slid shut, the bracelet's name seemed to ring in the small space, a word carried by metal and memory. When the doors opened on the boardroom floor, Tola stepped out into a silence that felt like a stage. She saw the long table, the screens, the tall windows, the suits. And at the head, she saw the man she had watched cross the lobby with a calm stride, now watching her with eyes that knew more than they said. Tola stopped at the threshold. Her breath found a careful rhythm. Her hands folded in front of her, respectful. She did not know what this would be, only that her life was about to turn like a page. Jordan took one step toward her, then another. The room seemed to shrink until it was only the space between them. He reached into his pocket, closed his fingers around the bracelet, and looked into her face not like a CEO to staff, not like a man to a stranger, but like a son to a question he had asked the air for years. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "please tell this room what happened downstairs." Tola's eyes flicked once to Vanessa, then back to Jordan. She drew breath. And then from the far end of the table, a voice broke in, smooth, cool, certain. "There's nothing to tell," Vanessa said. "It was an accident." Tola opened her mouth, but before she could speak, the chair lifted a hand. "We'll hear from the person who was on the floor," the chair said. "Then we'll check the cameras." A nerve jumped in Vanessa's jaw. Tola's hand trembled. She pressed it to the edge of the table to steady herself. Her eyes met Jordan's, and in them was every night shift, every landlord's knock, every prayer that left a kitchen and chased a boy across oceans. She began. "Sir, I was cleaning by the pillar when—" The boardroom door clicked again. Security stepped in and placed a tablet on the table near Jordan. "Lobby feed queued, sir." Jordan looked at Vanessa, then back at Tola. "Tell it," he said softly. Tola spoke, and the first sentence lifted the room like wind under a door. Tola's voice trembled at first, then found its ground. Years of silence had taught her that truth, when finally spoken, didn't need to shout. "I was cleaning the lobby as I do every morning," she said quietly. "I made sure to keep to one side so people could pass freely. Then the young woman," she hesitated, her eyes flicking briefly toward Vanessa, "came in. I moved my bucket out of her way. Still, her bag hit it and water spilled. I apologized. But she got angry," she said. Her lips pressed together, unsure how much to repeat. "Please go on," the chair encouraged. "She said people like me don't belong in a place like this. That I should hide myself. Then she stepped on my bracelet and called it trash." A sharp inhale rippled through the room. The investors shifted uneasily, eyes darting toward Vanessa, who kept her chin high but whose knuckles had turned white around the laser pointer. The chair leaned forward. "Did she apologize afterward?" "No, sir," Tola said simply. She walked away when Mr. Adeyemi arrived. A long silence followed. Only the faint hum of the projector and the soft tapping of rain against the window filled the room. Jordan looked down at the tablet security had brought. "Play it," he said. The lights dimmed automatically as the feed began. On the screen, everyone saw it. Vanessa striding through the lobby without looking, her tote swinging, the bucket tipping. The water splashing. Tola's calm apology. And then, Vanessa's face twisting in irritation, her voice sharp, her foot pressing the bracelet against the floor. The moment stretched unbearably as her words, cruel, cold, echoed through the speakers. When the clip ended, the screen froze on the image of Tola standing silently as Vanessa turned away. Jordan's jaw was tight, his hand wrapped around the bracelet in his pocket. For a full 10 seconds no one spoke. Then the chair said quietly, "That's enough." The lights came back on and all eyes turned to Vanessa. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup, but she recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. "It was taken out of context," she said briskly. "You can't hear everything I said and you know how these things look when recorded. I was frustrated about the water near expensive shoes, it wasn't personal." Jordan's voice was quiet but sharp enough to cut air. "You called her trash." "I didn't mean it literally," Vanessa said. "I was under stress, preparing for a billion-dollar investor pitch. I was—" "Enough," Jordan said. His tone was controlled, but his eyes burned with restrained anger. "You humiliated someone who works for this company, someone who has earned more respect than you could ever measure in numbers." Vanessa swallowed hard. "Sir, I've given everything to Skybridge. One mistake shouldn't." "It wasn't a mistake," Jordan said. "It was character." The chair nodded slowly. "And character," they said, "is policy you can't write down." The investors watched, silent, fascinated by the shift of power unfolding before them. Vanessa's polished confidence began to crumble. Her voice softened into something almost pleading. "Mr. Adeyemi, I didn't know the cleaner meant anything to you." Tola blinked. "Meant anything to him?" The room froze. Jordan's expression turned to stone. He rose slowly from his chair, the height difference between them making Vanessa look suddenly small. "You shouldn't need someone to mean something to me before you treat them like a human being." Vanessa's throat bobbed as she tried to speak, but nothing came out. Jordan slipped his hand into his pocket and brought out the bracelet. The scratched gold gleamed faintly in the light. He placed it gently on the table in front of her. "This," he said quietly, "belongs to her. And before you said those words, I didn't know I'd ever see it again." He turned to the others in the room. "You all know me as Jordan Adeyemi, CEO of Skybridge. But before I became that, I was Ao Adeyemi, the boy this bracelet was made for." Gasps rippled through the room. Tessa from HR covered her mouth. The chair's eyes softened, understanding dawning. Jordan looked at Tola. His voice broke slightly. "Ma." The word hung in the air, heavier than thunder. Tola's breath hitched. Tears welled in her eyes, trembling on her lashes. Her hands rose halfway, unsure if they were allowed to reach for him here, in front of cameras and men in suits. Jordan stepped closer. "It's me, Ma. Ao." A sound escaped her, half sob, half laugh, and she pressed her hands to her chest as though holding her heart still. "Ao, my son?" He nodded, his own eyes wet. "Yes, Ma. I'm home." The investors looked at one another, stunned. Vanessa's lips parted in disbelief. Jordan crossed the space between them and took Tola's hands in his. "I thought you were gone, Ma. They told me you left Nigeria, that you went to your sister's. I tried to find you but—" His voice cracked. "I couldn't." Tola wept softly. "I never left. I worked. I cleaned. I prayed for you every day." He knelt in front of her, his expensive suit brushing the floor she'd polished that morning. "And I am what I am because of you." No one in the room breathed. Vanessa's knees nearly buckled as the realization hit her. The poor old cleaner she'd mocked was the CEO's mother. The chair finally stood. "I think this meeting is adjourned," they said gently. But Jordan shook his head. "No. Let them stay." He turned to the investors. "You wanted to see what leadership means here? This is it." He faced Vanessa again. "You said this company likes charity," he said softly. "You're wrong. We like justice." "Sir, please," she stammered, tears now streaking her mascara. "Security," Jordan said quietly. The guard stepped forward. "Wait," Vanessa said, voice breaking. "Please, Mr. Adeyemi, Ao, give me a chance. I didn't know she was your mother." Jordan turned back, his tone low but steady. "That's the problem, Vanessa. You shouldn't need to know someone's bloodline to know they deserve respect." He nodded once to security. They led her out, her heels clicking hollowly down the marble hall. The room stayed silent until the doors closed behind her. Then Jordan turned to the chair. "Please record that this incident will be used in new staff orientation. Every new hire will watch that clip. Not to shame, but to teach." The chair smiled faintly. "A lesson worth more than any MBA course." Jordan nodded and turned back to Tola. He reached for her hand again. Ma, you don't have to work another day here. Tola shook her head, her eyes glistening. My son work kept me alive. Don't take that from me. Jordan smiled faintly. Then you'll choose what you want to do. But no more scrubbing floors. From today you're the head of employee welfare. The investors chuckled softly, admiringly. One of them whispered, that's real leadership. Tola's lips trembled. You always had a kind heart, Ao. Even when you had nothing. He laughed softly through tears. And you always had faith. Even when we had nothing. He looked around the table, then back at her. Come. Let's go home. He took her hand and they walked out together, mother and son, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget what they had just witnessed. The elevator doors closed, reflecting the two of them, one in a spotless suit, the other in a faded uniform, but side by side equal at last. As the lift began to rise, Jordan glanced down at her. Ma, he said softly, I'm sorry you ever had to clean my floors. She smiled through tears. And I'm proud I got to. Because today I see the man you've become. But before they reached the top floor, the elevator jolted to a stop midway. The lights flickered. A voice crackled through the speaker. Security control. Sir, it said nervously, you might want to come back down. Vanessa, she's refusing to leave the building. Jordan's expression hardened slowly. What did she say? The voice hesitated. She said, she's not leaving until she speaks to your mother. Tola's hand tightened around her son's. Ao. Let's go hear what she has to say. The elevator began to descend again, and neither mother nor son knew that the confrontation waiting below would shake the company, and their hearts, even more than what had just happened. The elevator doors slid open to a storm waiting below. Security guards formed a loose circle around Vanessa near the lobby entrance. Her hair was slightly disheveled now, and the composure that once cloaked her like armor had thinned to trembling silk. Her eyes were red, her breath unsteady, yet there was a defiance there, raw, desperate, and human. When Jordan and his mother stepped out, the entire lobby froze again. Staff who had watched the morning's humiliation unfold now stood in corners, peering from behind pillars and reception desks. Vanessa took a step forward. Mr. Adeyemi, she said, her voice cracking. Please, let me speak. Jordan's tone was controlled. You had your chance to speak upstairs. You said enough. I didn't know, she said, shaking her head. I swear I didn't know she was your mother. I never would have. Tola raised her hand gently. That's the problem, my child. You shouldn't need to know who someone is before you treat them with kindness. Her words hung softly, but they cut through the marble air sharper than any reprimand. Vanessa turned to her, her voice trembling. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I was stressed, I was stupid, I didn't mean to hurt you. Tola's eyes were calm, not angry, only sad. Do you know how many times women like me hear those same words after the damage is done? You say sorry when someone important sees. But what if no one was watching? Vanessa looked down, silent. Jordan folded his arms. You humiliated her in front of everyone, and now you ask for forgiveness in front of the same crowd. You want her to clean up your guilt the way she cleaned your mess. Please, Vanessa whispered. I don't want forgiveness. I want to make it right. Tola stepped forward slowly. Then learn, she said softly. Not for me, for yourself. The crowd's silence deepened. Every staff member could feel the weight of those words. But Vanessa's pride wasn't done fighting yet. You think you're better than me now because you're his mother? She blurted, tears mixing with bitterness. Everyone pities you, but you don't know what it's like to claw your way to the top. People like me don't get handed chances. Jordan's eyes flashed. People like you? He repeated. You mean people who step on others to climb higher? She opened her mouth to reply, but Tola spoke again before he could continue. Ao, she said gently, placing a hand on her son's arm. Let her talk. Vanessa's words spilled out like a dam breaking. You think I enjoy being cruel? Every day I fight to prove myself to men in suits who still call me girl. I work harder than everyone, but it's never enough. One mistake and it's over. I didn't mean to take it out on her, but, she pointed to Tola, I saw someone who looked like everything I'm trying to escape. Poverty. Powerlessness. Her voice cracked. I didn't want to see my own fear staring back at me. The confession fell into the room like a stone in still water. Tola studied her face, her tears, the exhaustion buried beneath pride. Child, she said softly, you don't escape your past by despising those who remind you of it. You escape by honoring them. Vanessa's shoulders slumped. Her eyes flooded. I'm sorry, she whispered again, but this time the words carried truth, not performance. Jordan looked from her to his mother, torn between justice and mercy. "Ma," he began, "after everything she said, after what she did?" Tola smiled faintly, her wrinkles deepening like lines of wisdom carved by years. "If we only show grace to those who deserve it, Ao, how different are we from those who show cruelty without cause?" He hesitated, his chest rising with a deep, slow breath. "You want me to forgive her?" "I'm asking you to lead," she said. Jordan's gaze softened. "Then let her earn it." He turned back to Vanessa. "You said you want to make it right. You will." Vanessa blinked through tears. "How?" "You'll stay," Jordan said. "But not as my executive assistant." Her heart jumped. She didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. "You'll work under the employee welfare program," he continued. "You'll report to the new head of that department, my mother." Gasps rippled through the room. A few employees smiled faintly. Vanessa's lips parted, but no sound came out. "You want me to work for her?" Jordan nodded. "You said you wanted to understand what humility feels like. This is your chance." Tola looked at her son, surprised, but she didn't object. "Sometimes," she murmured, "change begins where pride ends." Vanessa wiped her face. I'll do it." Jordan's tone softened. "If you truly mean what you said, you'll prove it through service." He turned toward the crowd now gathered around the lobby's edge. "Let this be a reminder to everyone," he said. "We build technology for the future, but if we lose our humanity, we've already failed." The staff nodded. Some even clapped quietly, the sound echoing through the lobby like gentle rain. Jordan looked back at his mother. "You once told me that power is not measured by what you can buy, but by what you can lift. I think I understand that now." Tola smiled. "And I think your father would be proud of the man you've become." At the mention of his father, Jordan's face softened, the walls of his composure crumbling for a moment. He lowered his gaze, nodding slowly. Vanessa, still trembling, whispered, "Thank you, both of you." Tola placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Rise early tomorrow," she said kindly. "We'll start with the workers' kitchen. You'll see how much heart it takes to feed others before feeding yourself." Vanessa nodded, tears streaming again, this time not from shame but from release. The tension in the lobby eased. The guards relaxed. Staff began to disperse, whispering about what they'd just witnessed. Jordan exhaled deeply. "Ma," he said softly, "let's go home." They walked toward the exit together. As the glass doors slid open, the morning sun poured over them, gilding the moment like a painting. Outside, cars hissed past on wet roads, and life felt strangely new, clean, like the world had been mopped of something heavy. Jordan glanced sideways at his mother. "You always said God tests us through people. I think he tested both of us today." Tola smiled knowingly. "He always does, my son. But he also blesses those who choose mercy over anger." Jordan nodded, his eyes following a bus rumbling down the street. "Maybe that's the real success. Not what we build, but who we become." Tola's eyes shone. "Then you've truly made it, Ao?" As they stepped into the waiting car, the staff inside the building watched quietly through the glass, each one changed a little by what they had seen that morning. And far behind them, in a quiet corner of the lobby, Vanessa stood alone, staring at the mop bucket she had once mocked. She reached down, picked up the handle, and began to wipe the floor herself. For the first time, she didn't feel humiliated. She felt human. 2 weeks passed. The rhythm of Skybridge Tech had changed. The same building that once felt like marble and tension now pulsed with something gentler, respect. Staff smiled more. People greeted the cleaners by name. And for the first time in years, the cafeteria felt alive with laughter instead of whispers. In the middle of it all, Vanessa Cole, once the proud executive assistant, now stood behind the cafeteria counter wearing a plain apron over her shirt. Her manicured nails were bare, her heels replaced by flat black shoes. It was humbling work, serving meals, cleaning tables, folding napkins, but she did it quietly without complaint. And standing nearby, watching with quiet pride, was Tola. "Good," Tola said softly. "You see now, it's not the work that breaks you, it's the pride that refuses to bend." Vanessa smiled faintly, sweat on her forehead. "You were right, ma'am. I thought this kind of work was beneath me. But the truth is, it's harder than anything I've done behind a desk." Tola chuckled, folding her arms. "That's because this work feeds people's strength. Office work feeds their ambition. Both matter, but one must never crush the other." Vanessa nodded, a new light of understanding in her eyes. "You're a wise woman." "I'm an old woman," Tola said, smiling. Wisdom just comes from living long enough to regret your mistakes and forgive yourself for them. Just then Jordan entered the cafeteria. Conversations hushed, then buzzed again with admiration. He was a respected CEO, but now everyone saw him differently, not as a distant executive, but as a man who knelt for his mother and stood for his values. He walked over to them, his expression softening when he saw the two women. "You've both been busy," he said. Vanessa straightened nervously, almost spilling the ladle she held. "Good afternoon, sir." Tola shot him a teasing glance. "Don't sir him too much," she said. "He may start thinking he's king of Lagos." Jordan laughed. "I'd rather be a good son than a king, ma." He looked at Vanessa. "How's your new department treating you?" "It's different," Vanessa admitted. "But I'm learning. And I'm grateful you didn't fire me." Jordan nodded. "My mother insisted. She said people deserve a second chance." Tola chuckled. "It's not just for her. It's for you too. A leader must know when to punish and when to redeem." "True," Jordan said quietly. "And sometimes redemption changes a person more than punishment ever could." The cafeteria door opened again, and a young courier entered, carrying a brown envelope. He handed it to Tola. "Message for Mrs. Adeyemi." Tola looked puzzled. "For me?" Jordan took it from her gently, scanning the seal. "It's from the Lagos branch of Hope Foundation." Tola frowned. "Hope Foundation? I don't know them." Jordan opened the letter and read. His expression shifted from curiosity to surprise. "They're offering to sponsor a community center in your name, ma. They said one of our employees nominated you for the honor." "Me?" she said, eyes wide. "I'm just a cleaner, well, used to be." Jordan smiled. "Not anymore. And someone clearly saw more than your job title." He turned toward Vanessa, who looked down shyly. Tola's eyes softened. "Was it you?" Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I thought, people like you should be recognized. You didn't just teach me humility. You reminded me what strength really is." Tola's eyes misted over. She touched Vanessa's shoulder gently. "Thank you, child." But Jordan noticed something else in the letter. A name at the bottom. Samuel Cole, head of corporate partnerships. "Cole?" Jordan said, looking up sharply. "Is that your father?" Vanessa froze. "Yes." "Why?" Jordan's brows furrowed. "Because this letter says he's the one who pushed this sponsorship through. And he's also a board member of one of our biggest competitors, Novatech." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" He did this." Tola sensed the tension building. "Ayo, what does that mean?" Jordan's voice turned firm. "It means Novatech may be using this sponsorship to influence us. Or worse, to embarrass us publicly by making it seem like my mother needed charity." Vanessa shook her head. "No, he wouldn't do that. My father, he doesn't even know about what happened here." Jordan handed her the letter. "Then why does his signature say, 'In recognition of the inspiring story of Mrs. Adeyemi, the cleaner who raised a sea'?" The cafeteria fell silent. All eyes turned toward them. Vanessa's voice faltered. "I swear I didn't tell him anything." Tola reached for her son's hand. "Oh, wait. Maybe it's not what it looks like." Jordan exhaled slowly, his mind racing. "If this story leaks before our next investor meeting, Novatech will spin it to make us look like a charity case. They'll say our CEO was raised in poverty, that Skybridge uses pity to gain public sympathy." Vanessa's eyes welled. "Please believe me, I didn't say a word. I haven't spoken to my father in years." Jordan's face softened slightly. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because he wanted me to marry a man I didn't love just to grow his business. When I refused, he disowned me. That's why I worked so hard. I wanted to prove I could make it without him." Tola's eyes filled with understanding. "Ah, so your pride came from pain." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I thought if I was tough enough, no one could hurt me again. But I hurt others instead." Jordan rubbed his forehead. "I believe you. But now we need to handle this carefully. If this sponsorship goes public, the media will twist it." Tola's voice was calm. "Then we'll tell the truth ourselves. Not with fear but with pride." Jordan turned to her, surprised. "You want the story to go public?" "Yes," she said firmly. "If people must know, let them hear it from us, not as a shameful thing, but as proof that hard work and grace can raise kings from dust." Jordan studied her face. He saw the strength in her wrinkles, the certainty in her eyes. She wasn't ashamed of her past, she carried it like a crown. He smiled slowly. "Then we'll do it your way, ma." Tola looked around the cafeteria, now filled with listening faces. "And you," she said, turning to the workers and staff, Never be ashamed of where you start. Only be ashamed if you forget who you were when you arrive. The room erupted in soft applause. Some people wiped tears from their eyes. Jordan leaned close to his mother and whispered, "You just gave a better speech than any CEO ever could." Tola chuckled. "That's because mine came from the heart, not a teleprompter." Vanessa laughed quietly for the first time in days. As the applause faded, Jordan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face hardened again. A notification from the business news channel flashed across the screen. Breaking news: cleaner who raised billionaire CEO. Skybridge's hidden story leaks online. Jordan looked up, eyes narrowing. "It's already out there." Tola frowned. "Is that bad?" He sighed. "It depends who leaked it, and how the world reacts." Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no, what have I done?" The story had just begun to spread, and within hours, it would take on a life of its own, twisting truth and mercy into headlines that could either destroy Skybridge or turn it into a legend. By noon the next day, the story had exploded across the internet like wildfire. #cleaner raised a billionaire trended on social media in over 10 countries. The video clip, of Jordan kneeling before his mother in the boardroom, had been leaked from a hidden phone camera. It racked up over 8 million views in less than 24 hours. Every headline had its own spin. From mop to mansion, the CEO who owes it all to a cleaner. Skybridge Tech's humble secret shocks investors. Meet the janitor mom who raised a billionaire. Jordan sat in his office, scrolling through the flood of posts. Some called it inspiring, others called it a PR stunt. News outlets camped outside the Skybridge headquarters. Investors demanded clarity. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. He rubbed his temples. Who recorded it? How did it even get out? Tessa from HR stood across from him, clutching a folder. "We traced the clip to a visitor's badge, one of Novatech's PR interns. He must have recorded during the board meeting." Jordan's jaw tightened. "Novatech again. They're trying to embarrass us." Tessa nodded. "But the public isn't reacting like they expected. People love your mother's story. They're calling her a national hero." He glanced up. "A hero?" She smiled faintly. "There's already a petition online asking to give her a Community Leadership Award. 500,000 signatures." Before Jordan could respond, a knock came at the door. The receptionist peeked in. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Jordan frowned. "Who is it?" She hesitated. "Samuel Cole." The name froze him for a moment. Vanessa's father. Head of Novatech Partnerships. The man behind the letter that started it all. "Send him in," Jordan said finally. The door opened, and a tall man in his late 50s stepped in wearing a gray suit and polished shoes. His posture screamed confidence, but his eyes carried something else, calculated curiosity. "Mr. Adeyemi," Samuel said smoothly. "Impressive office. I see you're handling your little media storm with grace." Jordan leaned back. "I assume you didn't come here to compliment my decor." Samuel smiled thinly. "Of course not. I came to talk business." Tola entered the room quietly then, carrying a tray with tea. The billionaire CEO's mother, still simple, still grounded, placed it gently on the table before either man could protest. Samuel's smirk faltered. "You're serving tea?" he asked incredulously. Tola smiled kindly. "Serving never makes one smaller, sir. It only shows the size of the heart." Samuel looked away, uncomfortable. "Well, that's quaint." Jordan studied him closely. "Why are you here, Mr. Cole?" Samuel placed a folder on the table. "Because the world is talking about your story. And Novatech intends to make it profitable, for both of us. We propose a joint media campaign, from cleaner to CEO. We'll share the story, sell the documentary rights, and frame it as a message of empowerment. You'll look noble, my company gets goodwill, and we both make millions." Tola's gentle eyes darkened with quiet disappointment. "You want to sell pain like perfume." Samuel chuckled. "Pain sells, ma'am. And your story sells better than most." Jordan's hands clenched. "You exploited my family once with that foundation stunt, and now you want to commercialize our lives?" Samuel shrugged. "Welcome to business. You can either ride the storm or drown in it. The press is already running the story. If you refuse to cooperate, we'll release our own version, with or without your blessing." Vanessa entered the room just then, hearing the tail end of the threat. "Dad, stop." Samuel turned sharply. "Vanessa? What are you doing here?" "I work here," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "And I'm not part of your schemes anymore." His face twisted. "You're embarrassing yourself. You could have been a VP at Novatech, but instead you're serving under a cleaner. Tola stepped forward. Not under me, she said calmly. Beside me. Samuel sneered. Beside you? She's my daughter, not a janitor. Jordan rose from his chair. You're right. She's not. She's a woman rebuilding her dignity, something money can't buy. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Dad, please leave before you say something you can't take back. Samuel turned to her. You always were sentimental. That's why you'll never survive in the real world. Jordan stepped between them, his voice steel cold. This is my building, Mr. Cole. In the real world, respect is the only currency that never loses value. You're dismissed. For a long moment, Samuel stared at him. Then he smirked, picked up his folder and walked to the door. You think this is over, Adeyemi? The world loves you now but fame fades. We'll see how long before your mother's story becomes yesterday's news. When the door closed, silence lingered. Tola turned to Jordan. Don't let anger lead your next move. Jordan nodded slowly. He's right about one thing, the story's everywhere. But maybe that's not a curse. Maybe it's a chance. Vanessa wiped her tears. A chance for what? Jordan looked out the window, the Lagos skyline stretching endlessly. To show people that where you start doesn't define where you end. He turned to them. We'll hold a public conference tomorrow. No spin. No PR filters. We'll tell the truth, our way. Tola smiled. Now you're speaking like your father. Jordan nodded. And acting like my mother. The next morning, Skybridge press conference. The auditorium overflowed. Journalists, investors, and staff filled every seat. Cameras flashed. Jordan walked on stage with Tola by his side. The murmurs hushed. He took the microphone. You've all heard our story, he began. But what the headlines didn't tell you is that this story isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who wakes up before dawn to work for a dream no one sees yet. The crowd leaned in. My mother worked as a cleaner not because she failed in life, he continued, but because she refused to fail me. And I became a CEO not because I'm special, but because someone mopped the floors beneath my feet so I could walk safely. The audience clapped softly. He turned to Tola. Would you like to say something, Ma? She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the flashbulbs. To every mother, every worker, every soul who thinks they are unseen, know this. Your worth is not in the uniform you wear but in the heart you carry. Applause thundered through the hall. Some reporters even stood. Jordan smiled, pride shining in his eyes. And to anyone who mocked or doubted us, thank you. Because you gave us a bigger stage to remind the world that kindness and humility will always outlast arrogance. The press erupted with cheers. The story, once meant to humiliate, now became Skybridge's greatest victory. Tola's speech went viral within hours. Schools invited her to speak. Nonprofits asked her to become an ambassador for dignity in labor. She accepted, not for fame but to inspire. And in the midst of the spotlight, Vanessa found herself walking beside Tola, humbled but renewed. One evening as they left the office together, she said quietly, Ma'am, I used to dream of being powerful. Now I just want to be useful. Tola smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. Then your dream has finally found its true form. From the top floor of the building, Jordan watched them go. Two women, once enemies, now bound by redemption. He whispered to himself, This is what legacy looks like. But just as he turned to leave, his phone vibrated. A new message popped up. From unknown number. You may have won the crowd, Jordan. But you've made powerful enemies. Watch your back. Jordan's expression hardened. He stared at the message, then looked out the window at the dark horizon beyond the city lights. The story of his mother's redemption had changed the world's heart. But it had also awakened those who would do anything to bring him down. That night, the city outside Jordan's penthouse glittered like a river of restless stars. But inside, silence pressed down like a storm about to break. Jordan stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, phone in hand, staring again at the message that had appeared hours earlier. You may have won the crowd, Jordan. But you've made powerful enemies. Watch your back. He'd read it 10 times. Each time it felt heavier. Tola sat on the sofa behind him, folding freshly washed napkins from dinner, calm as always. Ayo, she said softly, you've been looking at that phone for too long. Whatever it is, come sit. He turned. It's a threat, Ma? People threaten when they fear, she replied. Fear is loud. Courage is quiet. Jordan paced slowly. This isn't ordinary hate mail. It came through a secure channel, one only my executives know. Tola's eyes lifted. You think someone inside your company sent it? I don't know, he admitted. But whoever it is, they're close. Tola put down the napkin and rose. Then pray first, act second. He smiled faintly despite the worry. You always said that. And it's never failed you, she said, brushing invisible dust from his shoulder. But don't let fear harden you, Ao. Remember, anger clouds the wise. He nodded, though the unease in his chest wouldn't settle. A soft knock interrupted them. It was Vanessa. She looked nervous, her phone clutched tight. Sir, I think you should see this. She held out her screen. A breaking news alert glowed across it. Anonymous source leaks Skybridge internal audit files. Allegations of data mismanagement under CEO Jordan Adeyemi. Jordan's blood ran cold. What? Vanessa scrolled. They're saying you falsified growth numbers. They have confidential documents, some of them real, some altered. Tola frowned. Who would do such a thing? Novatech, Jordan said darkly. Samuel Cole warned me this wasn't over. But he can't access our internal network. Vanessa hesitated. Unless someone helped him. Jordan's jaw tightened. Find out who had access to last quarter's audit. Yes, sir, she said quickly. I'll work with IT right now. After she left, Tola walked to the window beside him. The higher a tree grows, the stronger the wind that tries to pull it down, she said quietly. You must stand firm. He sighed. Standing firm doesn't stop arrows, Ma. Maybe not, she said, but it reminds others where the truth still stands. The next morning, Skybridge headquarters. The office buzzed like a hive. News vans were parked outside. Employees whispered in clusters. The leaked documents were spreading fast online, painting Jordan as a fraud. In the boardroom, Jordan faced the senior directors. Their expressions were mixed, some supportive, others anxious. One spoke first. Mr. Adeyemi, investors are panicking. We need to release a statement denying everything. Jordan shook his head. Not yet. If we speak too soon, we'll sound guilty. I want facts first. Another director frowned. Novatech's stock just rose 5%. They're clearly behind this. Jordan turned to Tessa from HR. Any progress? She nodded grimly. IT traced the breach. It came from an internal account, Vanessa's old executive login. Murmurs filled the room. Jordan froze. Vanessa? She's been locked out since her reassignment, but someone reactivated her credentials remotely last night, Tessa explained. It could be her father, or someone pretending to be her. The room grew tense. Where is she now? Jordan asked. In the welfare office with your mother, Tessa replied. She doesn't know yet. Jordan left the boardroom immediately. In the small welfare office, sunlight filtered through blinds, lighting up rows of potted plants and staff records. Vanessa sat at a desk sorting forms while Tola arranged food hampers for the janitorial team. When Jordan entered, both women looked up. Something wrong, Ao? Tola asked. Jordan's voice was steady but cold. Vanessa, did you give your father access to Skybridge's internal systems? Her face drained of color. No. I haven't spoken to him since he came here. Then explain this, he said, placing a printout on the desk. An access log showing her username reactivated from an external IP address. She stared at it, shaking her head. That's impossible. I don't even know how to do that. Tola stepped between them. Ao, slow down. The truth needs air, not anger. Jordan exhaled. If she's innocent, we'll prove it. But someone used her name to betray this company. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I swear I didn't. Just then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and gasped. It's my father. Answer it, Jordan said. She put it on speaker. Dad. Samuel Cole's voice oozed through the speaker, calm and smug. Good morning, sweetheart. I saw the news. Your boss looks worried. Tell him it's only the beginning. Jordan's eyes narrowed. You're finished, Cole? Oh, am I? Samuel laughed. By tomorrow, the regulators will open an investigation. When they're done, Skybridge will fall, and Novatech will buy the pieces. Tola's voice was calm but firm. Mr. Cole, have you no shame? He hesitated. Her tone carried the weight of a mother's disappointment, something no businessman could armor against. Ma'am, this is business. This is cruelty, she said. And cruelty never builds anything that lasts. He hung up without another word. Vanessa sank into her chair, trembling. He's gone mad. Jordan rubbed his temples. He's desperate. He can't destroy us with truth, so he's using lies. Tola touched his arm. Then fight lies with light. He looked at her. Light. Truth, my son. Speak it again. Loud enough that even enemies can't twist it. Jordan nodded slowly, resolve hardening in his chest. Then we'll show the world everything, our books, our process, every receipt. If they want transparency, they'll get it. He turned to Vanessa. I need you to help me prove this breach wasn't you. She blinked. You still trust me? My mother taught me something, he said quietly. Don't punish people for the shadows others cast over them. Tola smiled faintly, pride flickering in her eyes. Vanessa wiped her tears. Then I'll clear my name, and yours. Later that night, the plan. Jordan gathered his tech team in the war room conference suite. Screens lined the walls, glowing with code. Novatech planted false files, the lead engineer explained. But we can trace the timestamp signatures. They'll reveal where the manipulation happened. Do it, Jordan ordered. I want proof before sunrise. As they worked, Tola sat quietly in a corner, reading her Bible and humming a Yoruba hymn. The sound softened the sterile hum of machines, grounding everyone in calm. Hours passed. Then the engineer shouted, Got it? The files were edited on an external server registered to Novatech's PR division. Jordan smiled for the first time that day. Perfect. Send it to every major news outlet. Make it public before they can bury it. Within an hour, news broke again. Leaked investigation reveals Novatech fabricated Skybridge fraud documents. The tide turned instantly. Public outrage shifted toward Novatech. Investors who had pulled out earlier began calling back. Jordan exhaled deeply, shoulders loosening for the first time in days. Tola looked up from her hymn book. So the truth stood after all. He smiled. You were right again, Ma. She grinned. I'm your mother, I'm always right. Vanessa entered then, holding 2 cups of coffee. It's over, sir. Novatech's stock is crashing. My father's been suspended pending investigation. Jordan took one of the cups and nodded. Let's hope he learns from what he's done. Vanessa sighed. He won't. But I have. And that's enough for me. Tola rose and placed a hand on her shoulder. Child, you have faced your own test. Now walk free from your father's shadow. Vanessa smiled weakly. I will. Jordan looked out the window toward the city lights again. This company almost fell because of pride. His, mine, everyone's. But maybe we needed this storm to remember what matters. Tola's voice was soft behind him. And what matters, my son? He turned, eyes warm. People. Family. Truth. She nodded. Then you've already won. As dawn painted the sky orange, Jordan stood beside his mother on the roof terrace of the building that once nearly cost them everything. The city below was waking up, unaware that one man's greed had almost undone a lifetime of faith. Tola placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Ayo, the storm has passed. But remember, peace must be guarded as fiercely as truth. He smiled. I'll remember, Ma. And as the sun rose higher, casting gold over the skyline, he knew the next chapter of his life, and his company, would begin not with fear but with grace. Weeks passed since the scandal and Skybridge Tech began to heal. The storm that had once threatened to tear the company apart now became the story of its greatest transformation. The media had moved on to new headlines, but the impact of Jordan and Tola's truth-telling lingered. Skybridge became a symbol of integrity and humility in leadership. Job applications tripled. University graduates cited Jordan's speech in essays. Even international business schools requested him for lectures on ethical leadership in modern Africa. But for Jordan, the victory didn't feel complete. He sat late one evening in his office, the city lights of Lagos glittering beneath him. The company had survived, yes, but inside he felt the hollow ache that comes after battle. There was peace but also silence. Tola entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of hot cocoa instead of tea. You've been in this office too long, my son, she said. Jordan smiled faintly. I'm just finishing reports, Ma. Reports can wait, she said, setting 1 cup before him. Peace can't. He leaned back, sighing. It's strange, Ma. We proved our innocence. The company's stronger than ever. But it still feels like something's missing. Tola studied him, her eyes wise and warm. When you've forgiven others, have you also forgiven yourself? He frowned slightly. Myself. Yes, she said gently. You carry guilt for things that were never yours to hold. Your father's absence. My struggle. Vanessa's pain. You think success can erase those scars, but forgiveness is the only thing that truly heals. Jordan's throat tightened. He had never thought about it like that. You really think that's what's missing? I know it, she said simply. He smiled softly, looking at her. You always know. She chuckled. Mothers see what the world hides. Just then his office intercom buzzed. Sir, said the receptionist's voice, there's a visitor here asking to see Mrs. Adeyemi. He says it's important. Tola and Jordan exchanged glances. Who? Jordan asked. The reply came after a pause. He says his name is Samuel Cole. Jordan's jaw clenched. Again? Tola's expression softened. Let him in. Ma. She raised a hand gently. Let him in now. Some storms must be faced, not avoided. Moments later the door opened. Samuel Cole entered, no longer with the confidence of a conqueror. His face looked drawn, his suit wrinkled, and his eyes were hollow with sleepless nights. Tola motioned toward a chair. Sit, Mr. Cole. He hesitated, then obeyed. I owe you both an apology, he said quietly. Jordan folded his arms. Go on. Samuel sighed heavily. When I leaked that first story I thought I could crush you. But I lost everything instead. Novatech removed me from the board. My reputation is gone. Even my daughter won't take my calls. Vanessa's name hung in the air like a weight. Jordan's voice was calm but cold. And now you're here because you want forgiveness? Samuel nodded. I'm not asking to be redeemed. I just want to make things right before the world finishes with me. Tola watched him quietly, her eyes unreadable. Why now? He looked down at his trembling hands. Because when I saw you defend your son on national television, I remembered something I'd forgotten a long time ago. What love looks like when it costs you everything. A silence filled the room. Tola stepped closer. Do you know what true power is, Mr. Cole? He shook his head slowly. It's not in titles, she said. It's in knowing when to bow low. You've done wrong but your soul is still alive. That means you can still begin again. Samuel's voice broke. You would still show me kindness after what I did? Tola smiled faintly. It's not kindness, she said. It's freedom. For me, not you. Jordan exhaled, the anger in his chest softening. My mother believes in mercy. I learned that from her. But mercy doesn't erase consequence. Samuel nodded. I understand. I'll accept whatever comes. Jordan leaned forward. Then prove your change. Help rebuild what you tried to destroy. Join our foundation's literacy project, under my mother's supervision. Samuel blinked. You'd trust me to work with her? Trust. Jordan said. No. But I'll give you the chance to earn it. Tola smiled gently. Sometimes second chances are what truly save people. Samuel lowered his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. Thank you. Both of you. A month later, the foundation launch. The sun blazed over the courtyard of the new Tola Adeyemi Community Center, its yellow walls bright against the sky. Journalists and locals gathered to celebrate the grand opening. A banner fluttered above the stage, rising from humility, empowering lives through dignity. Tola stood at the podium in a simple Ankara dress and head wrap. Beside her stood Jordan, Vanessa, and Samuel. Her voice carried strong and clear. This center will serve as a reminder that no hand is too dirty to build, and no heart is too poor to give. We will teach, feed, and uplift, not because we are rich but because we remember. Applause thundered. Some of the cleaners from Skybridge wiped tears. Vanessa smiled proudly, standing a few steps behind Tola, no longer as a disgraced worker but as one of the project's directors. Samuel, humbled, handed out books to children with quiet dignity. For once there was no pride in his eyes, only peace. After the ceremony, Jordan pulled Tola aside. Ma, I've never been prouder. She smiled, looking at the children playing near the gate. Then keep building places like this. Let your wealth plant trees that shade others. He nodded. You know, I think this is what Dad would have wanted. Tola's eyes softened with memory. Your father always said, legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's who you lift up while you're here. Jordan smiled. Then we'll keep lifting. As the day faded, they stood side by side, watching children laugh and workers paint murals on the walls. The city around them buzzed, alive with hope. And though the path had been rough, each of them, Jordan, Tola, Vanessa, and even Samuel, had found a piece of redemption. The arrogant had learned humility. The betrayed had learned forgiveness. The proud had learned peace. It happened on a Thursday morning, bright skies, gentle breeze, and nothing to suggest how quickly peace can turn to chaos. Skybridge Tech was preparing for a major investor showcase, the company's first global event since its recovery. Journalists from around the world filled the hallways, capturing the story of the CEO raised by a cleaner. Jordan, calm but focused, was in the final stages of rehearsal. His mother, Tola, sat in the front row watching proudly as her son walked across the stage, practicing his speech. Vanessa coordinated staff and volunteers, clipboard in hand, every bit the efficient professional she'd grown into. Even Samuel, now a humbled man, supervised the community partnership booth outside, helping distribute leaflets to guests. Everything was perfect, until the explosion. A sudden blast ripped through the west parking area, a deafening roar that shattered glass and threw the entire building into chaos. The shockwave sent people screaming and diving for cover. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and smoke curled into the air like a dark serpent. Jordan was thrown to the ground by the force, ears ringing. "Everyone get out," he shouted, pushing debris off himself. Tola was dazed but conscious. Vanessa ran to her, pulling her toward the exit. "Ma, come. Please." "I'm fine," Tola said, voice shaking but steady. "Where's Ao?" "I'm here." Jordan stumbled to them, blood running down the side of his face. He grabbed both women's hands. "We need to move now." Security rushed in, guiding the panicked crowd toward the emergency stairwell. Smoke thickened. The fire alarms wailed in agony. As they moved toward safety, Samuel came running from the opposite hallway, coughing and covered in dust. "It's the parking lot," he shouted. "Someone planted something. Security says it wasn't an accident." Jordan froze. "Planted?" Samuel nodded. "They found fragments of a timing device. Someone wanted to send a message." Tola's hand flew to her chest. "My God." Jordan's mind raced. "Evacuate everyone. Now." He pushed through the chaos, shouting instructions, guiding staff out through the east corridor. The building's automatic sprinklers hissed, misting smoke and ash. His heart pounded, every instinct screaming to get his mother to safety, but another instinct, the one born of leadership, refused to abandon others. He spotted a young intern trapped under a fallen light rig. Without hesitation he rushed back, grunting as he lifted the twisted metal off the boy's leg. "Go!" Jordan shouted. "Get outside." The boy limped away just as another tremor shook the building. Vanessa grabbed Jordan's arm. "You can't stay here." He turned toward her, coughing. "Get my mother out." "I'm not leaving without you." Tola's voice cut through the chaos, gentle but firm. "Ao? Obey your own mother before you lose her again." That made him stop. He turned, saw her face, strong even amid fear, and finally nodded. Together they pushed through the smoke and chaos until they reached the exit doors. Outside, firefighters and security teams were already flooding in. Ambulances lined the street. Tola clutched her son as the crowd surged. Who would do such a thing? Jordan's mind flashed to the message weeks ago. "You've made powerful enemies. Watch your back." Could this be connected? He scanned the scene, and that's when he saw it. Across the street, half hidden by the crowd, stood a man in a black suit, watching the chaos unfold with chilling calm. He turned away slowly and disappeared into a waiting car. Jordan's instinct screamed. "I saw him before," he muttered. Vanessa turned sharply. "Who?" Jordan's eyes narrowed. "That man was in Novatech's security division 2 years ago. Fired after a data breach." "You think he—" "I don't think," Jordan said. "I know." He started forward, but Tola grabbed his arm. "Ao? Not now. Let the police handle this." He looked down at her, torn between rage and restraint. "Ma, they tried to kill us." "I know," she said softly. "But don't let revenge kill who you are." Her words hit him harder than the explosion had. Paramedics arrived, urging them into an ambulance. Vanessa helped Tola inside, but Jordan stayed back to oversee evacuation. The scene was chaos, sirens shouting, the acrid smell of smoke and fuel. An officer approached him. "Sir, we've contained the fire. But this wasn't random. Whoever did this used professional-grade explosives." Jordan nodded grimly. "I want full cooperation with the police. Pull all security footage, every angle. If someone's declaring war, we'll find them." He looked toward the city skyline, smoke rising against the horizon, and something hardened inside him. Later that night, the hospital. Tola rested on a hospital bed, a small cut on her forehead bandaged. Vanessa sat by her side, holding her hand. Jordan stood near the window, his clothes still streaked with soot, his expression unreadable. Samuel entered quietly. "The police confirmed it was deliberate," he said. "They think it was meant as a warning." Jordan turned slowly. "From who?" Samuel hesitated. "They don't know yet. But—" he swallowed. "I have a feeling it's someone inside Novatech's old circle. When I left, I made enemies too. There were people who didn't want me to lose power, people who liked the war between us. Jordan's eyes darkened. Then they just made it personal. Tola's voice, weak but steady, broke the tension. No, Ao. This is not personal. It's a test. He turned toward her, frustration flickering in his voice. A test? They planted a bomb, Ma? Yes, she said softly, to see if you would respond with the same darkness they carry. Don't give them that victory. Her words landed heavy, silencing the room. Vanessa spoke gently. She's right, Jordan. You've already shown the world that compassion is stronger than cruelty. Don't let anger rewrite that. He exhaled, shoulders sinking. Then what do we do? Tola smiled faintly. We rebuild again. We always rebuild. 2 weeks later, the new Skybridge vision. The destroyed section of the building had been cleared. Workers moved quickly to repair what was lost. But Jordan had a different vision now. He gathered his executive team and staff in the courtyard, where a temporary stage had been built. His mother sat in the front, wrapped in a shawl. Vanessa stood beside her, clipboard in hand, eyes proud. Jordan stepped up to the microphone. They tried to destroy what we built with fear, he began. But fear cannot burn what faith has built. The crowd listened, silent and emotional. He continued, from this day forward, Skybridge Tech will create a foundation dedicated to victims of violence and workers who risk their lives for honest labor. We will call it the Tola Trust Initiative. The employees erupted in applause. Tola's eyes filled with tears, her trembling hands covering her mouth. Jordan smiled down at her. Because no explosion, no threat, and no hate will ever silence kindness. He paused, scanning the faces before him, some bruised, some bandaged, but all standing tall. We will rebuild not just our walls, he said, but our purpose. The crowd cheered, chanting his name. Cameras flashed. But amid the noise, Jordan's gaze found his mother's, and for a fleeting moment, the whole world seemed quiet again. He thought of everything, humiliation, forgiveness, betrayal, near death, and the lesson that tied it all together. Tola had once said, peace must be guarded as fiercely as truth. Now he understood. Peace wasn't silence. It was strength, the kind that kept standing when the world tried to knock you down. The rain came down hard that night, drumming against the roof of the rebuilt Skybridge lobby. Thunder rolled over Lagos like a warning from heaven. Inside, the entire building buzzed with quiet determination, workers moving through the halls, rebuilding what the explosion had torn apart. But beneath the hum of drills and murmurs, tension pulsed like a hidden current. Jordan sat alone in his office, the soft glow from his desk lamp painting his face in gold and shadow. On his screen, a series of police reports scrolled, surveillance footage, call logs, and financial transactions tied to the bombing investigation. At the bottom of one report, a name caught his eye. Wire transfer recipient, Cole Foundation subaccount, 47 million Nigerian nairas, approximate $35,000. He froze. Cole Foundation. He knew that name. Before he could think further, his phone buzzed. It was a message from the lead detective on the case. We found your bomber. But you need to see this in person. His pulse quickened. He grabbed his coat and left. Lagos Central Police Headquarters, 11:45 p.m. Rainwater dripped from his sleeves as Jordan entered the precinct. The detective, a broad-shouldered man named Inspector Dada, greeted him grimly. Mr. Adeyemi, he said, thank you for coming. Who was it? Jordan demanded. Inspector Dada sighed and opened a folder. Inside was a photo, grainy, black and white, of the man Jordan had seen across the street during the blast. Name's Deli Ogundiel, the inspector said. Former Novatech security operative. We tracked him down last night trying to flee to Benin. He confessed. Jordan's jaw clenched. Who hired him? The inspector hesitated. That's where it gets complicated. He pulled out another photo. This one, a document showing Deli's bank transactions. The 47 million Nigerian nairas transfer came from an account registered to the Cole Foundation. Jordan's stomach dropped. Samuel Cole? The inspector nodded slowly. It was his charity's account. But he claims he didn't authorize it. Says someone used his credentials. Jordan exhaled sharply. If not him, then who? The inspector flipped another page, showing an IP address used for the transfer. It wasn't Samuel's. It wasn't Deli's. It was registered to a Skybridge internal account. The account belonged to Vanessa Cole. Jordan's breath caught. No, that's not possible. She's the only one with access to both systems, the inspector said. We need to bring her in for questioning. Jordan shook his head violently. No. Vanessa would never do this. She risked everything to rebuild with us. She saved my mother's life. Sometimes loyalty hides guilt, the inspector said gently. We'll know soon enough. Jordan left the station in a daze, rain washing over him as he drove back to the office. Skybridge headquarters, 12:20 a.m. The building was nearly empty, except for a few security guards and the hum of rain on glass. Vanessa's office light was still on. Jordan pushed the door open. We need to talk. Vanessa looked up, startled. Sir? It's past midnight. What's wrong? He tossed the folder onto her desk. That's what's wrong. She opened it, confusion twisting her face. What is this? The police traced the payment for the bombing, he said quietly. It came from your foundation account. Vanessa's eyes widened. What? That's insane. I don't even have access to that account anymore. My father, he cut me out after I left Novatech. Jordan stared at her, searching her face. Then who did? Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. This signature, it's not mine. Look at the timestamp. That's the day I was in the hospital with your mother. He looked closer. She was right. His shoulders loosened a little, but something still didn't add up. Then who would want to frame you? Before she could answer, a soft voice came from the doorway. Someone who needed both of you out of the way. They turned. Samuel Cole stood there, soaked from the rain, his face pale. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dad. Vanessa whispered. Samuel stepped in slowly. It wasn't her. It was me. The words hit like thunder. Jordan froze. You hired the bomber? Samuel nodded, eyes hollow. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It was supposed to be a warning, to scare you, to make you back off after the scandal. But Deli took it further. He wanted blood. Vanessa's voice cracked. You tried to scare us? Samuel's eyes filled with tears. I was angry, Vanessa. Angry that I'd lost everything, my power, my company, my reputation. I wanted to hurt him. He pointed at Jordan, the man who took my place in the headlines. I thought if he stumbled, Novatech would take me back. I didn't know people would get hurt. Jordan's hands balled into fists. People almost died, Cole. My mother could have been killed. Samuel broke down, his voice shaking. I know. I turned myself in. I came here to tell you before the police found out. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that pressed against the chest and made breathing painful. Tola appeared in the doorway, drawn by the raised voices. What's happening here? Jordan turned to her, his eyes burning. Ma, he did it. Samuel planned the bombing. Tola looked at Samuel, whose face crumbled under her gaze. Is it true? He nodded, weeping openly. Yes, I've lost myself. I deserve whatever comes. Tola's expression was unreadable, sadness, shock, compassion all flickering at once. She stepped closer. You tried to destroy my son, and yet you come here seeking forgiveness again? He fell to his knees. Please. I have nothing left but regret. Tola's voice was calm, but her eyes glistened. Regret is not enough, Samuel. But repentance can still save your soul. Jordan turned away, struggling to control his rage. Ma, you can't forgive him again. Not after this. She looked at her son. Forgiveness doesn't mean freedom, Ao. It means peace. She turned to Samuel. You'll go to the police. You'll face judgment. But I will not let hatred own my heart. Samuel bowed his head, tears falling freely. Thank you. I don't deserve even that. Jordan's voice broke. You're right, you don't. But even as he said it, watching his mother's calm strength, something inside him softened. He turned to the window, watching the rain wash over the city, and whispered, You taught me mercy, Ma. Even when it feels impossible. Tola placed a hand on his shoulder. Mercy isn't weakness, my son. It's the strongest thing we have. Samuel Cole was sentenced to 12 years in prison for conspiracy and corporate sabotage. From his cell, he began writing letters of apology, not just to Jordan and Tola but to his daughter and to the Skybridge employees he endangered. Vanessa visited him once a month, not to excuse him but to help him heal. You taught me ambition, she said one day, but they taught me humanity. I forgive you, but I'll never follow your path again. Skybridge Tech grew stronger than ever. The Tola Trust initiative expanded across Africa, offering scholarships to cleaners' children and job programs for widows. Jordan's leadership became legendary. And Tola, the woman once mocked as a cleaner, was awarded the National Medal of Honor for her role in inspiring ethical reform in corporate Nigeria. During the ceremony, Jordan stood beside her, fighting back tears as the president pinned the medal on her chest. The crowd roared. Cameras flashed. But Tola only smiled softly and whispered to her son, "The real metal AO is in the lives we've changed." He nodded, voice low and full of gratitude. "And in the heart that taught me to forgive." She laughed. "Now you sound like me. Maybe I finally learned." They both smiled, looking out over the crowd, a sea of faces that once would have looked down on her, now rising to honor her. From the ashes of arrogance, betrayal and pain, something greater had risen. A legacy built not on power but on mercy.